As we get set for a highly anticipated 2024 baseball season, I'm happy to chat for a sixth straight spring, by the way, with the radio voice of your Philadelphia Phillies. It's Scott Franzke. Hey, Scott, great to see you again. How do you enjoy another late winter, early spring down in Clearwater in the surrounding area?
It was pretty nice. For what time I was there, I tend to fly back and forth a lot. But I was down there. I got back last night. I've been down there for 10, 11 days or so to wrap up camp. And yeah, it was good. Until the very end, relatively healthy camp. Not a ton of storylines really to follow, but sometimes that's good too. A lack of drama, if you will. That's okay too.
Hey, well, let's talk about the Phillies rotation, first of all. A rotation that has, well, Zack Wheeler, Aaron Nola, both in the fold for the next 3+ years now. And Ranger Suarez, 1, 2, 3 should be pretty good, I would think. What do you expect from those guys this year?
They all look great in the spring. I mean, Zach's been working on some stuff, adding in a split, change up, off-speed pitch. And he's really working hard at it. And, if he figures that out, good luck to the hitters because he's already among a handful of guys that, for me, that I would want on the mound in a big game. I've always been a Nola fan. I know he's taken his hits in this town and some ups and downs, but I'm glad he's back. I think that kind of workload is almost impossible to replace these days. You just don't find those guys. And Ranger, a full, healthy spring, and I think with I don't want to say a lot to prove, but he's next up on the payday list, I guess, if you look at starters, and I think he's always been somewhat underrated. I don't know that a lot of people outside of Philly and maybe the clubs that see him on a regular basis in the division really realize how good Ranger Suarez is, but I think it's, as far as big three go, they're right there with any other club in baseball, I think.
Hey, with Taijuan Walker on the shelf for a little while, it'll be Spencer Turnbull behind Christopher Sanchez now as the number 5 starter. He did pitch a no-hitter a few years ago, but otherwise the 31-year-old Turnbull has not exactly had a stellar career, 12-29, an ERA above 4.5. Should Dave Dombrowski be looking for another starter?
Well, they're always looking for more starters. That make no mistake about that. But at what price? I know a lot of people keep bringing up Jordan Montgomery, but money is a factor, and contracts are a factor in this game, and they sort of play into the whole thing. So I'll say this about Spencer Turnbull. He was a guy that was a good developing young starter and then got hurt and hasn't really put it back together since being hurt. But I think he feels like he's healthier now than he's been in a few years. And if he can, keep that health, I think the Phillies feel like this is a buy low kind of situation, and it's all upside where Turnbull is concerned. And they didn't put a lot of pressure on him you got to do this to make the rotation. He was ticketed for the bullpen or maybe even the AAA rotation from the very beginning of spring training. And only because of the injury to Walker is he, in line to be one of the 5 guys coming out of the gates. But I think they feel like they perhaps have found somebody that can be a, nothing but upside kind of player.
Well, speaking of pitching, there was a weekend MLB.com story citing Fangraph and the WAR metric and all that stuff. They said that heading into the season, the best bullpen in baseball belongs to, believe it or not, the Phillies. Can that be true?
I guess it can be true. I feel like you can manipulate the numbers and whatever narrative you want to tell, there's probably a number that will back you up, support your narrative. But to me, it's a good bullpen. It's a really good bullpen. Is it the best in baseball? Time will tell. Health plays into that. Jose Alvarado, for instance, one of the great relievers on the squad, twice had to go on the IL last year, and they managed his workload very, very carefully, somewhat in response to those 2 trips to the IL. So, those kinds of things over a 162 game season, they're going to happen. Those guys will go down here and there. They'll need a breather, if you will, and a reset, and maybe some IL time for this, that, or the other. But I think they feel like again they're good. The top tier is really good. I think it becomes so often a bullpen is measured by how good the closer is and the top 2 setup guys, and I think they feel like they've got 3 to 4 pitchers at the end of a game that they trust. But sometimes the real bullpen numbers come in when that second layer of relievers really show what they can do, and whether it's Connor Brogdon or Junior Marte, even Luis Ortiz as a long man, throwing strikes, getting outs, being efficient, that all plays in. But I think they can be good. We'll see if they will be.
You said there wasn't much drama this spring, but one of the big questions was, should Johan Rojas, great defensively, not so great with the bat, be the center fielder? Rob Thompson and company apparently think yes. So how long will they stick with Rojas if he does struggle at the plate?
Tough question to answer, only because we've seen that he struggled mightily in spring training, and yet he still won the job. He can't, you wouldn't think, put up those kind of numbers over a month or 2 months without them having to seriously consider. I think one thing that Rob Thompson gets concerned about with a young player is what happens mentally with that player. If he gets buried, if he's struggling, if he can't sort of get out of an early hole. Another factor to consider is, he's working closely with Kevin Long, and I think part of it, they want to keep that work relationship going rather than hand him off to somebody at AAA to take care of it. They want that progression to still be firsthand knowledge, and watch him day in and day out, and work with him on in the cage day in and day out. So that's part of it. But again, if he struggles out of the gate, and if he looks closer to what he looked like in the playoffs than he did in the regular season, I think they'll have to consider it, whether it's a month or 6 weeks in. But if he's holding his head above water, his defense means a lot to this team. And if he's keeping his head above water offensively, then I think they ride it out.
We know pretty much what we're going to get from guys like Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber. What about the shortstop, who had a rather atypical Trea Turner kind of season his first year with the Phillies? What do you expect from him this year?
Well, I know he's really worked hard the last month on his defense, day in and day out, to try to improve defensively. I think he was frustrated by the slow start offensively, and maybe that kind of took precedence, and I think maybe it played over into his defense a little bit. He's looking to be much better defensively. He knows he can be better defensively. Is he going to win a Gold Glove? Maybe not, but he certainly, I think, is better than what he showed us last season defensively. He has those sorts of skills and abilities, and he's really taking that to heart. It would be a lot to ask for him to do what he did over the last 2 months. But I think the idea is that he's just a little more consistent, and he's better overall, doesn't get buried early on. And he's certainly more comfortable now. He understands the city and the franchise and the fan base and all these other things. And a little bit like Castellanos the year before, he's made the adjustment and feels like he's more comfortable now. At least that's what he said. So can he be what he was the last 2 months? Yeah, but that's an MVP player. And if the Phillies get that out of him, this is going to be a fun year.
Well, Rob Thompson and some of the Phillies players say, yes, they really do want to win the NL East this year rather than take the wild card route again. Is it important?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. I think it's a goal worth trying to get. I mean, I don't think you can constantly go into the playoffs and expect to suddenly beat the Atlanta Braves and in a 4-game, 5-game series. Is it the be all end all? No, but but I think it would be good for them to compete and, again, not get buried and get into the month of June and July and still be a factor in the division race. I think that would be great. It's a worthwhile goal, and then it gets you even another round of home field advantage and Red October and all that stuff. So it's a goal worth pursuing. I mean, the Braves are going to be tough, though. I mean, they're still really good. So, but I mean, I think if the Phillies are healthy, relatively healthy, and if they play sort of to their career norms, I don't see why they can't compete for it. Again, as long as they don't get buried, kind of early in the season. The old cliche, you can't win the pennant in April, but you could lose it. And I think they did the last couple of years, and they're hoping to avoid that again.
Well, last thing, Scott, I don't remember exactly when or where I heard this about you, but it stuck with me and I found it, very troubling, frankly. Maybe I got it wrong. Again, very disconcerting. Is it true that you don't like tomato soup?
I don't. I've never had a particularly affinity for it. I don't know where you're getting that information, but
I don't remember either.
I wouldn't say it's something I would ever order.
Well, there you go.
That's for sure.
That's un-American, Scott.
Yeah. I would opt for more of a clam chowder or something, like tortilla soup or something along those lines.
All right. Well, Scott, have a great season. The broadcast crew, again, you and Kevin Stalker, most of the time on the road, LA and you for home games. It's going to be a fun year.
Yeah, let's hope. Thanks for having me as always.